everyone, and welcome to In the Newsroom. I'm Yoo-ji. In the next half hour or so, we'll be bringing you the behind-the-scenes look on how we deliver the news to you. But before we do that, let's go over to our Seung-ha for a quick rundown of some of the stories that made headline this week. Seung-ha, hello.
Hi, Ji-hye. For this week's headlines, let's start off with an update in domestic politics. Lawmaker Moon Jae-in is leading the DUP presidential primary election race, followed by Seung-ha, the former governor of Gyeonggi Province. The DUP will hold a total of 13 regional primaries open to the general public over the next month to determine the nominee. Following its win in the latest patent battle with Samsung in the United States, Apple made moves to ban 8 Samsung smartphone models from the U.S. market. However, the hearing for Apple's request won't take place until December 6th. Powerful Typhoon Bolaven hit South Korea this week and has left about 24 dead or missing. Nearly 200,000 households lost power on Jeju Island and the southern regions, while schools and flights faced cancellations. Korea posted a record high current account surplus in July, reaching over $6 billion. However, economists say that the record surplus is not all that pleasant, as imports fell at a steeper pace than exports in the face of a global slowdown. And global ratings agency Moody's upgraded Korea's sovereign bond rating to AA3, citing Korea's economic resilience to external shocks and strong fiscal fundamentals. That's the highest rating that the country has ever received from Moody's and the 4th highest that the agency gives out. And while tensions between Korea and Japan are rising surrounding the ownership of Dokdo Islets, a Japanese scholar has said that the islets are not Japanese territory and that he has the maps to prove it. These maps from the late 1880s show that Japan did not consider the Dokdo Islets as its territory back then. Well, that's all from me for now. I'll be back with more headlines next week.
Hello, guys.
Hi, guys.
Right, so Korea was on high alert over news of a powerful typhoon. So one, of course, was Typhoon Bolaven, which left a trail of a number of deaths and devastation throughout the country. I mean, a number of you have been tracking down the storm and the heavy rain, of course, the post-typhoon. Well, how bad was it?
Well, in terms of casualties, we had like 25 dead or missing, and over 200 people lost their homes and got hurt, and including a lot of damage caused to the farmlands as well as the sea in terms of fishing as well.
"60 meters a second. That's how fast winds inside Typhoon Bolaven blew at their max as the massive storm swept across the west coast of Korea on Tuesday. The Central Disaster Relief Headquarters says 10 people have been confirmed dead, mostly from accidents caused by debris falling off buildings or objects blown by the wind. Another 15 are still missing. Off coast of Jeju Island, 5 Chinese fishermen died and 10 are still missing after 2 Chinese fishing boats sunk in extremely choppy waters. Over 200 people lost their homes, and some farmers lost their entire crop just before harvest. Nearly 2 million homes lost power temporarily, and hundreds of flights in and out of the country were canceled on Tuesday.
So it wasn't as strong as people expected in Seoul, but in the southern regions, it was pretty bad. And people here were preparing for the huge storm. And, you know, like I was kind of nervous too. I didn't know if I should be doing something or if I should be, you know, duct taping my windows.
Yeah, I mean, how did you or people around you cope with this extreme weather conditions? Because, like you said, like duct tapes and what was it? The newspaper, you put it on.
You stick newspapers wet on the window sill, then it was supposed to, you know, protect the window from breaking, and you're collapsing down with a tension or on the newspaper and the glass. And a lot of people actually cope with protecting their cars by parking underground and covering their cars with blankets and everything, because trees would collapse unrooted and just break all the things in this way.
I never knew about the wet newspaper, actually. That was the first time I heard about that.
That's a clever way to protect your window. I mean, I guess it's going to break It's to hold them together.
Well, now I know.
Probably what that works. Well, Lian, I saw your stand-up. I think everyone did, and was quite impressed. I mean, it seemed like a very rough sight when you were out there with your microphone. How did that work?
But one thing I want to say before we go into this is that Seoul was nothing compared to other parts of Korea. Obviously, I don't think we had deaths in Seoul, but when I was out there in the Han River, the wind speed, I think when I read it at that time, was about 17 meters per second. And that's like 1/3 of how the strongest wind speed was in Korea was at 51 meters per second, making it the 5th most severe typhoon, right? But even at 17 meters per second,
Your hair is crazy.
Yeah, I was having a hard time standing up straight, and we had to redo the stand-up one like again and again because there would be like hair going into my mouth and like my hair in my eyes, so I wouldn't be able to see and stuff like that. But it was fun. It was my first stand-up covering a weather story, and it was very like in the scene and
In the
like
moment.
yeah, right. So
Well,
it was fun.
speaking of your first time, I'm sure this regards you too, Seung-ha, but it's been, 5 months that you've been here in the newsroom with all of us, and it was your very first time making a debut in the studio or a News in Depth. It must have been challenging. Can you share with us?
Well, luckily for me, I got to do the Samsung versus Apple patent, supposedly the biggest patent in a century.
Right, Lian, so let's begin with the ruling in San Jose. Was it a surprise that the verdict heavily favored Apple?
Well, there's no dispute that this was a clear victory for Apple, and that was a surprise. And I say that because none of the patent battles around the world up until now have seen either side score such a clear victory, and most experts thought this case would be no exception. But before we dive in any deeper, here are the details of the jury's decision on Friday.
In simple terms, the 9 jurors deliberating over the case of Apple versus Samsung in San Jose, California, were deciding if Samsung copied Apple. To make their decision, jurors first had to answer more than 700 questions on highly technical matters and wade through over 100 pages of instructions. When they returned with their verdict in less than 3 days, it came as a surprise. The jury decided that Samsung violated 6 out of Apple's 7 patents, and in turn said that Apple had not violated any of Samsung's patents.
Actually, when I was sitting down at the news center, I was pretty calm because I've practiced my script so much, but right when the news in-depth logo starts coming on the TV, my heart started pounding so fast, and that's when I started getting really nervous. But thankfully, nothing really
you
crazy
look
happened.
extremely poised, like you too, Seung-ha. I mean, you guys knew what you guys were talking about, very confident. And I'm sure our Connie and Ji-san must have gone through the same thing. Do you remember what it was like when you first got on air?
I think it was another sports story that I presented for Arirang today, so it was okay that I was aware of what I was talking about. So that was a good thing, but there were times, there are unexpected surprises such as your prompter goes off or the CD doesn't come at the right time. So I think as the time goes on and your experience accumulates, you get to adapt and cope with these situations on air.
But coming out of it, I had already 10 things in my head that I wish I would have done this better and that better. So I think really experience builds skill.
I mean, going back to your Samsung and Apple story, so is this going to affect other patent suits that's ongoing around the world? I believe there's more than 30?
Well, I'm sure it cannot affect other lawsuits. Obviously, this was a huge win for Apple. But then on a bigger, broader level, Samsung is coming up with new products all the time. And Apple doesn't really give consumers much of a choice when it comes to smartphones or their iPads. And just a few days ago, I did a package on how Samsung is coming out with the Galaxy Note 2, which was the first version was already really successful in the first half of this year. And also, this whole patent battle, right, was in a bigger, broader level, was between Google's Android and Apple. Right. And now everyone's thinking Android, it's very unfortunate that Samsung lost the biggest user of Android software. Now Samsung is coming up with a new phone that has a different software, now the Windows this time. So this patent battle really cannot affect them too much on a broader level. Maybe their image as a copycat is more solidified because of this patent battle, but broader and longer terms of things, I don't think it will affect the company.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good opportunity for other competitors to kind of jump in and have their, have their try at, smartphones and technology.
You did one story on iPhone 5, was it?
Well, I did the story on new products from Samsung and LG, and LG is actually coming out with a new phone that detects voice recognition, so you can just talk to your phone and send text messages right away. And the iPhone 5, it's supposedly coming out October, but that could also be delayed, especially here in Korea. So we don't know yet, and like none of the details have been revealed anyway. So, but Samsung and LG, they're just spitting out products right now.
But I don't think investors or stakeholders would worry about Apple or Samsung, because on the day when the verdict came out in Seoul, Samsung share, which is over $1 million or about $1,000 here in Korea, they just dropped like less than 1%. And in New York Stock Exchange, the Apple shares actually climbed up like more than hitting this record high to nearly $700 a share. And a lot of experts say that there's the result of the verdicts or the judgments have been already reflected in their shares, and the two companies are already prepared for all these outcomes. So I think there won't be as much changes or shocks in the market.
Oh, I see. So let's move on to Seung-ha. You did a story on youth employment. Tell us how you came up with that story in the first place, and how you felt sharing it with all of us.
Actually, the problem of unemployment is not really severe in this country compared to Greece and Spain. The youth unemployment rate there is like over 50%. So compared to that, it's relatively low at around 7%, but it's higher than the overall rate, which is around 3%. So I think it still is a problem here. It was a problem which include my friends as well, because I have many friends who don't just immediately go out and get a job, and instead they take more time, like 1 or 2 years, to prepare themselves to get a better job. So I thought it was a very interesting story for me and my friends as well. So I had a good time doing the coverage. Yeah.
Now it's more competitive just to get a job.
Yes,
So they have a really good education and good background. It's still hard to get any
decent job.
Yeah, the problem is that there are too many people with college diploma these days. Over 70% of high school students, they go to universities. So there are just too many smart people, and the number of stable jobs are limited. So yeah, it's highly
Who would have
competitive.
thought that would be a bad news, like with so many smart people around. But I remember, Connie, just popped in my head, but you did one story on how young people are coming up with their startups.
Right, there's a boom in startups actually. So it kind of correlates to your study too. There are a lot of young people out there, can't find decent jobs, so now they have this new attitude of where they're saying, oh, I think I can come up with my own business or my own startup. So if they have the idea and the people or the support, they're actually coming up with, an idea and a company. And so it was really interesting actually. I met a lot of young people, they're around our age, and before in Korea it wasn't so encouraged, or that wasn't a very, a popular road to take to do your own startup, do your own business. It was more like go to one of the conglomerates company or one of the big companies in Korea. But now I think the attitude is changing, with people, younger people and with older people. So people are looking for new options now. So it could be a good opportunity for Korea to kind of, there could be a boom actually in the startup world in Korea.
Yeah, it was certainly an eye-opener. But back to you, Seung-ha. What sort of challenges did you go through, like coming up with this in-depth story, in-depth report?
I realized that the most important thing is to find the right person to talk to, because I went to research institutes, and one question I asked them was about how about raising the small and mid-sized companies, and they were from big companies. They were not willing to talk about that. So I realized that it is really important to get
the right door.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I see. Did you get to talk to just random people in the streets? Did you have any?
Random? Not really. Instead, I went to a labor union representing young people. So I talked to the chairperson of the union, and she had some different ideas too, compared to the economic analyst. she said that she mentioned high tuition fees as one of the reasons, because college students, they have to apply for loans because the tuition fees are really high in Korea. So when they come out to the society, they have the debt they have to pay. So they have no choice but to apply for highly paying jobs like conglomerate companies, big companies. So they keep delaying their application because they want to go to better companies.
They're just aiming high.
Yeah, they're just aiming high. Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, speaking of tuition, half tuition is a key policy for the presidential candidates. And what are the upcoming measures from the government regarding the unemployment rate?
There is a law which states that public companies and public institutions, they have to hire 3% of the total number of employees from young people. But the problem is that it's not mandatory. So not many companies are abiding by the law. So I think there should be stricter laws. And one more idea is that the government could pay incentives to companies who hire many young people to encourage them to employ more young people. So there could be some ideas that government can do.
Right. Hopefully that would all work out, especially when the country is going through an economic slowdown due to the whole situation that's happening in Europe and elsewhere. But thank you very much, guys. I mean, this week has been nerve-wracking and hectic because of Typhoon. And thank God everyone is safe and sound. Hopefully next week we'll come up with more interesting stories. And
I got my boots ready
Oh,
for the
yes,
rain.
of course. Okay, have a great weekend, guys.
All right. See you.
I'll be covering the Democratic United Party's month-long presidential primary, now on its day 4. I'm going to cover how it kicked off and what kind of problems it ran into and how it's been resolved. This is the Presian print news agency, and my interviewee happens to be coming this way for his schedule today. So that's why I came here to interview the experts. Obviously, I'm covering the Democratic United Party's presidential primary, and we want to know who is likely to win the race and what experts think about these troubles that the party had with its voting rules and whether it's going to be completely normalized or not. So that's why I'm interviewing a political commentator.
민주통합당 경선 처음에 이렇게 어려움도 많았지만 이제 정상화가 될 거라고 보십니까?
사람들이 그 경선의 의미를 찾을 수 있게.
I got great, insightful responses from the political commentator. I asked him lots of questions about, the systemic glitches that the Democratic United Party's presidential primary had. And also I asked him about whether the results of this primary, how the results would affect other candidates like Professor An Chol-soo, who is seen as a wild card for the liberal camp. It was great. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I will do my best to deliver his views, the experts' views, to our viewers. We have to go back to the office now, and I have to do a video edit, and then I have to finish writing my article, and then get ready for the news in-depth at 6, and then at 10 p.m. It's going to be a busy day.
3 of the 4 contenders, Kim Do-kwan, Son Hak-kyu, and Chung Se-gyun, boycotted the Ulsan primary on Sunday.
As I listened to the recorded recorded interview that I did, I get to remind myself what kind of content we discussed. And so as I listen to the recorded message, I get to determine, in which direction I will write the article.
Was it only the Jeju primary that was the problem for the mobile?
No, also Ulsan. I talked with the editor, Jenny, how much of the new information updates my article should have, and also how much of the old information should be included in the article, because this coverage is the first in-depth coverage on the DUP primary. So we have to, do a good job of balancing the two so that our viewers would get a good grasp of this event. All right. 저 CJ 하나만을 할게요. 네. 민주통합당만 쓰는 거래요. 그래서 이거를 조금 이렇게 글씨 색깔을 다르게 해주신다고 해서.
강조해서 하는 거요?
네네네. I make sure that I, talk to the CG staff effectively, and so I think that's the key point. Yeah, good communication. Only allowed to vote in person at the ballot box.
Even if voters hang up before hearing the entire automated message.
I was very happy and excited to go out and hear views of a commentator, which was something new for me as well. And so I'm happy that I was able to bring this report to you, to our viewers, and introduce how the political system works in Korea.
Well, today we are going to connect live to our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Yeon-ji, who is standing by at Yeonpyeong Island. It's near the northern limit line in the West Sea, and many of us know it's the very location that was shelled by North Korea back in 2010, which left 2 civilians and 2 soldiers dead. Yeon-ji, hello. What brought you to Yeonpyeong Island?
Hi, Jie. I'm here at Yeonpyeong Island and at the observatory deck. And I'm part of the media tour organized by Arirang TV, where foreign correspondents residing in Korea is taking part of this event. Around 35 foreign journalists and correspondents took part in this event, which is helping them to report Korea better and just giving them access to the areas that are usually, that could be tricky of getting coverage for.
Well, it must have been quite a journey. How did you get there?
Yeah, well, we took the Chinook helicopter from the air base in Seoul, and usually it takes around 2 hours by ferry to travel to Yeonpyeong Island from the port of Incheon, but it only took us 15 minutes by helicopter, which was organized by the Korean Air Force. And when I'm doing stories related to the Defense Ministry, we usually take the helicopter provided by the Air Force or the Army, and it's a unique experience because there is a limited capacity of how many people can get on board. And it's a very unique experience that most people don't get to enjoy.
Right, Yeon-ji, I know this is not your first time to Yeonpyeong Island. In fact, it's your second since the artillery shelling back in 2010. Did much have changed since your last visit?
Right. There has been some changes compared to a year ago when I was in Yeonpyeong Island. The residencies, all the houses that were bombarded from the shelling, 100% of them have been fully recovered. And there are still some construction going on, which is usually mostly for renovation and just building new soccer fields and just renovating the existing facilities here. Things are back to normal at Yeonpyeong Island, but when I talked to the residents, they still could feel the remaining hurt and sorrow from the incident, and for them it was an event something that they will never forget. Back to you, Tia.
Well, Yeon-ji, thank you very much for talking to us.
I found 2 people, male students, who were willing to do this.
Korea posted a record beating the DUP press. 소리. 다시 할게요.